first step for pulling this motor out is to drop the motor oil out of the motor. So 215K. I calculated that's probably 40 or so oil changes on this. I did it about every 3,000 to 3,500, even though I was using full synthetic, just because I think about this stuff in an old school way. Crack this filter loose with my cap wrench. Out of this thing. Don't need to do that this time. Oh. Alright, this filter. This is always my favorite part. It's got the little ramp on there. It's supposed to, looks like it's supposed to let all the oil drip down and run out to come out this little front cover, but maybe if you sit there for 2 hours it'll do it, but I just don't have that time, so I pull the thing off and then just clean it up. Alright, that's a little bit less than usual. Okay, next is to let the coolant out of this, and there is access right here. Takes a Phillips screwdriver. Looks like some of it was hitting the shield instead of dropping straight through. I remember this happening before. This one shield must be out of alignment a little bit. The hole, there's an access hole. It's supposed to be lined up with that drain port. And it looks like it's sort of splattering around. And so if you've ever worked on one of these vehicles, you know that the first thing you do when you do almost anything is take off this intake that's between the air cleaner and the intake manifold collector. Loosen that up. I'm gonna save this. I'm still gonna be using this on the new engine. So this will come out. This is called a Resonator. It's got different channels in here to quiet down the vibration and the turbulence at different points in the RPM range. This actually, I can leave this on here. I'm going to take this off back here because it's going to need to come off back here anyway. Disconnect and take it off this wiring harness. Just disconnect this wiring harness support and the air cleaner housing. We'll come back to that. That may need to come out. Coolant is still dripping out down there. The order of operations does not call for taking this serpentine belt off until later, but I'm just going to do it now because I don't want to spill coolant on it and ruin it. It's only got about 20,000 miles on it, so it's still good, and I will still be able to use this. You may notice I have more than what you're used to seeing in terms of the sway on this engine. That's because there's no transmission in it. No transmission hooked onto the back of it to give it that 3-point support. So it's just sitting on the 2 motor mounts right now. That's why you're interesting. It caught me off guard a little bit initially until I remembered what was happening there. I'm going to take off this upper intake manifold collector and the throttle body and the vias. This big wire loom off of this bracket. I can get to the two bolts that are holding that on. These are 10mm. It's like a lot of stuff under here. Before I started this right here, I made a video for myself to memorialize the various hoses and connection locations and wiring harness connections and all that kind of good stuff. So I can go back and look at that when I'm putting this back together, just in case something doesn't look right, or two hoses look like they could go to the same place. It doesn't happen very often here. Most of the time, if it looks like it goes, if it looks like it reaches somewhere, that's where it's supposed to go. They don't make it any longer or shorter than they need to get it done here. Okay. Like that. Disconnect this one here. In there. That does need to come off because it's blocking access to some of the bolts for this intake manifold collector. We have a power tool for this, and I should probably get that out to save my strength. Wow, that was easy. Alright, so that stays in there. Leave that in there to lift that off with this whole thing. Now this looks like this bracket comes off here, and I do not remember that one coming in here. This wire comes off it, the tiny point there. This one. If I can get to from the back, I can use the needle nose to squeeze that one. some of these connectors. 5. Everyone's a little bit different. Some of them have a tab you push in. This one on here, I've never taken that throttle body connector off. This one, you squeeze it like a binder clip and pull it out. This is probably the low pressure sensor for the air conditioning. Looks like an AC line here. Maybe. Yeah. The AC compressor was over there. That's the power steering pump. That's the pressure sensor for the power steering pump. Alright. For now, I'm going to leave this bracket on there. And I'm just going to take this hose loose right here on the throttle body, just so I can get some of this stuff up out of the way here and get some progress in me. Hopefully these hoses are going to come off somewhat easily, because most of them just came on this past summer. I replaced all the rubber hoses in this thing this past summer before I got the idea of replacing this engine. For now. Just a little help down here. Get one of these under my belt. Hey, that was easy. Let's try this one. That was easy. That one I need to put my light down in here. This. Certainly adds another dimension to it with the engine bouncing around. Not used to that. Sometimes you get a better angle with these. Not this one. Easiest stuff is the hardest for me sometimes. ground wire interfaces here out of the wiring loom to the engine block. These bolts. That one's a fuel there. I'm going to leave that there. Pull this one off. Here. Connector on the outside. Taking off the connectors on the coil packs. This whole loom is going to have to come out of here. This main wiring supports off the left valve cover. Connection off the camshaft position sensor. Look at that to remember. This is intake manifold spacer. Been running. Ran the one from the guy in North Carolina for a couple years, and then I got the Z1 Motorsports version that is a little bit thicker. Been running that for about a year. It's very subtle, but I think it does something. Just force of habit. I'm going to put a rag over this. Keeps them from falling in there. Now, can I take this hood off by myself without a helper? Let's see. Try to take off the bottom nut on each side first, because that one I have to lift up to get it. How hard can it be, right? Should be enough weight towards the back to keep it from falling forward or something silly like that. Famous last word. Rag over this latch so that it doesn't latch closed on me, doesn't lock. And I'm gonna lay this thing down right here. And then I can pick it up right there. Right there. I need a rag under it. Keep it from slide back down on this when it hits about 50 or 60 pounds. Alright, it's telling me to remove the grill now. And it looks like it's just these little plastic retainers that you have to pop the center up and lift them out. So there's 3 on each side at the top. And that one fell apart. I've never had this off before. This is just, they've just been sitting there, but they just fall apart. This is plastic. Okay. It said there are pawls at the bottom. Okay, so it's got a couple more of these down in there too. Okay. Harder to get to. Alright, now removing the radiator to get some clearance in front of this thing so we can pull it forward and up. It's a little bit. It says take off the hoses. Take off the lower first. I have a cup here, just in case there's a little bit left in there. Maybe I can get a twist on this. There we go. The manual says remove PCV hose. I'm not familiar with a PCV hose that's over here, and why there would be a PCV hose over here at the radiator. So let's skip that one. I'll take off the lower. Alright. Alright, it's saying to remove the mechanical cooling fan. I didn't print that page out. At some point this shroud's going to need to come off, so let's see what we got here in this shroud. Iron harness for the electric fan. That's a pretty cool design. There's a piece underneath that goes on there to enforce the airflow with the fan with respect to the radiator. But you can pop that off with two clips at the bottom like this. Just squeeze together, and then this pops off. That gives you enough clearance to pull this up around the fan blade. I have to disconnect the air conditioner condenser off of this. It looks like the air conditioner condenser's on the front. This is the air conditioning line. Comes here, and it's connected to this condenser on the front. And then the actual radiator that has the water in it for the engine is back here. All right, I'm going to pull this radiator out of here now. So what I need to do is take these two brackets off here and then just lean this back a little bit, and then I need to take out two bolts that hold the AC condenser onto the front of the radiator. They're both up at the top here. And then I need to lift up the radiator, move it back a little bit, and then lift up the condenser to lift it out of the tabs at the bottom that are holding it onto the front of the radiator, and then pull the radiator out, bring the condenser back up against the front of the framing member here, and then I'm going to tie it with some wire to hold that, to keep it from bouncing around and putting stress on the refrigerant lines. We don't want to obviously break those, and the whole point of why we're doing this so carefully is so that we don't have to open up the refrigerant circuit and then recharge it and all that kind of mess. The AC works great in this truck, and I don't want to mess with any of that stuff. So hopefully I can do this without breaking any fittings loose or making anything leak here. It says I should be able to lift up. Okay. And slide that back just a little bit. And then I should be able to lift the AC core. Off of it. Okay. Okay, like that. Alright. Now my wire, I'm going to put through that hole that we were just working on. And there is a hole right up above here in this cross member that I'm going to tie into. Okay, here it comes. And it is dripping a little bit at the bottom. That's okay. Okay, now I'm going to take off this fan blade. Looks like 4 10mm. I'm going to be careful not to bounce off here and hit the AC condenser. I'll put my hand behind the tool to make sure that it stays within its lane. Fan blade. And just as a note, it is marked which side goes out towards the front, because I guess if you put it on backwards, it'll blow the out towards the front instead of pulling it in from the front. That says the next step is to remove the wiring harness off of everything to get that clear. I do notice that it did call for this, and I just disconnected one end of the brake booster. I'm going to do the other side of that too. Just take that off, get that out of the way, because it is an interference to what I'm trying to do back there in the back right now. Support clip here. Okay, I went and regrouped a little bit. Since these are so easily accessible from here, I'm going to pinch them with these needle nose and just pull them out. I already did one. Seems like it should be so easy, right? All right, now continuing with this wiring harness. Okay. All right, I'm going to have to take some of these out of the way first. Done these several times. The plugs. Okay. That's it. So, now I think I can get engine coolant. These look weird. A lot of times you can't use them for one out of every 20 or 30 times. You can't do it without. Yeah. Finally, an application for these on this project. This came in very handy doing the rubber hoses, especially these ones down here for the lower radiator hose that goes up to the thermostat. That one was very challenging and was made easy with that set of the long needle nose pliers. Now I need to take off this fuel line. I turned off the fuel pump and I cranked this thing extensively. Alright, now I got a set that looks like these. These are the old kind I used to use. Let's see if I can get in there with this. There we go. This one's too small. This feel it. Jeez. There we go. The manual says to put a plastic bag over this and tie it off. Probably a good idea. For nothing else, the fumes out here in the garage when it's closed in. Force of habit. Again, here I'm going to blow this out. Now the lower intake manifold, I'm going to leave that on while I'm pulling this thing out of here. I don't think that's going to cause any problem other than adding 5 pounds of weight. I have a new lower intake manifold. I was getting the error for the intake manifold runner being stuck several times, probably 70 or 80,000 miles ago. I cleared it and it didn't come back. Then it came back again one time. But I think that the manual says when you get that error code, it basically means you need a whole new piece and not just the motor or the sensor that are on the back there. That is probably because when that stuff starts to fail, it can break apart and fall apart in there. And once something falls apart in the intake path, that's usually not good news. So I'm not going to put that on a new engine and have that thing fall apart and get sucked in. So that's what we're going to do there on that. Okay, so I'm going to try to for this power steering pump. I got a few things that are in the way and a few things that need action here. The main ground from the battery to the engine block is a 12 millimeter. There is a water pipe, coolant pipe, comes from the back and comes around on that right side that's in the way, and that's going to be in the way of the slinger as well to pull this thing out of there. So I'm going to have to take that off. I got the O-ring that I need for that when I reinstall that on there, and all the gaskets that go with that. So let's go ahead and take this clamp loose here. I don't remember these things being this hard earlier. Alright. Over here. It's power steering. It says in the instructions to move the reservoir off to the side. Let's see what we can do with that. Okay. Right over here. process. Move the reservoir off to the side. We're going to need to take the alternator off in a minute anyway. Alright. And then 12 at the top. Alright. Okay. This is the one that goes from that main water pipe coming up along the right down to the oil filter platform. That power steering pump feels like it's still being held on there. There's no sleeve in that one that had the 14mm bolt. The one I took out is maybe it's a bracket, and there's another bolt inside that you can access through a cutout in the pulley. I was going to just try and swing this alternator out of the way, but it doesn't feel like it's going to go out of the way enough for me to feel confident that I'm not going to crush it on the way back in. So I'm going to take it out, which involves taking the plug off of it and taking the heavy charge wire off of it as well. Okay. The plug. I know this is not a good camera angle and you probably can't see anything. I can't hardly see anything in here either. It's a big project and I'm getting sort of tired. Because a lot of this, I don't remember a lot of this stuff being this hard before. You do just one of these, you do an alternator on a weekend, it's not that big of a deal. If you do it in the middle of when you're doing all the rest of this, dropping a transmission, pulling an engine out, then it's a big deal. Everything starts to become a big deal. Now, at long last, I can take this alternator out. Okay, alternator. I'm going to take a break now. Okay, I think I got figured out this power steering. There was a clip holding the one hose that goes over to apparently a cooler for the power steering fluid that runs out in front of the AC condenser. Once I released it from that, I can move the reservoir around just a little bit more. And now I also feel like I got this. I don't always just got the pump off of here. That needs to come off because it's going to be flapping in the breeze while we're trying to lift this thing out of here. Barely get on there with that. What the fuck is this? I'm going to take the whole steering off this thing to get this thing out of here. Fortunately, it's not on very tightly. I'm going to pivot to my stubby ratchet. Alright, I think I found the last bolt. The question is, can I get to it? Now it says pull it up out of the way. I think right here there's a try and tie a loop around this thing. Okay. Okay. I did notice while I was under there, there's a couple more connections underneath there that I need to check into to make sure before I try to grab this thing and lift it out of here. These hoses right here. It looks like the new engine has this metal piping on there already, so I'm just going to remove these hoses right here at those points, just mostly so they're not flopping around. I want as little as possible to be bouncing around and flopping around on this thing while I'm trying to lift this engine. I'm having to squeeze them so hard that I'm not going to feel satisfied about using them again. Ah. One way or another. Have to be careful here that you don't scratch up and smash up the AC line right there. It's still connected. Oh, the timing, the valve timing. Power steering pump is ready to come out. It just needs a little help getting out of that flange. Something to nudge this out. Okay, here it comes. Little by little. It's wedged quite tightly in that. There it is. So I got the power steering pump off here. The motor's pretty much going to be coming up. It's going to have to come forward a little bit to clear right here. So it's, I think this should be out of the way. We'll see when we get there. But I just hooked a piece of wire to it here, and then ran a piece of wire over there. It looks like it's wrapped around this AC line, but it's not. It just happens to go near it. It's around it, but the tension is not touching that AC line. The rest of these accessory pulleys off of here. Clamping way. Steering pump's right in the way. Let's see if I can. There we go. come out of the threaded area. And then it's clear for a half inch or so, and then it comes back into the threaded area again. You have to come through there gently to, I guess, keep from cross-threading something in here. I don't really like that feeling of that. These bolts are designed to do that. Thinking I got this one. The last one should be pretty easy. It looks clear. And I should be able to take this whole assembly with the idler arm and this fan pulley. Tighten it up there. Go. A little tiny bit. Cleaning up a few loose ends here before I hook the engine hoist up to this motor. I'm trying to pull this thing out of here. This is the breather apparatus. It's just a pipe end that aims down so it tries not to get water in it, and it has a hose hooked up to it that goes back to the transmission, so that the transmission has a breathing capability to it to keep a pressure build up in there and etc. Down here on the right side, on the passenger side, there is a water pipe that is in the way of where the slinger needs to go on this side. I need to take this bracket off too for the intake collector. The front portion of this is separate, or can be separated. There's one bolt that's holding it on right back here to the part of the pipe that goes around the back and connects to both of the pads areas to circulate the water. I took that bolt out and tried to take this pipe off, and I tried turning it, and I tried just pulling it, and I didn't want to destroy something. I know there's an O-ring in there, and I bought the O-ring so that I had a new O-ring to go in there, but I don't feel good about yanking on it anymore. So I'm going to take that pipe off the back and take this whole thing off and pull it out so that I can see how that thing goes together, and then I'll determine how I'm going to handle that going forward with dropping the new motor in there, whether I'll put that pipe on the back first. I probably will, as long as I can figure out how this thing comes off without getting too rough with it. So I'm going to go do that now. I also noticed that there are a few more items down here. In this area, there's a what looks like a ground connection for the electrical stuff, and there are also two harness connectors down there. That's the oil pressure switch possibly down there. There was one more harness coming up under this intake, under this lower intake manifold from the back. And so I need to investigate those and make sure that that stuff is disconnected. Just had that snug on there because I had taken this open yesterday trying to get it out, and I couldn't figure it out without getting too rough with it. So let's see. It's hard to get here. I don't feel like I want to tear this thing. I try to be as delicate as I can. Now, I need to take it apart because I'm afraid it's going to leak. But it's so hard. Alright, I'm going to have to come back to this. I'll research this online and see if I can get any fix on this. I remove that ground connection to the block down here next to the starter. It's like 14 millimeter. Just took the starter out. It's got the plus connection, and then this is probably the solenoid actuator here. There is a wiring loom going underneath this lower intake manifold to somewhere on top of the engine block. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. I was going to leave it on there because I have a new one, and I was just going to leave this one and pull it off later off the old block, but it looks like I need to take it off now. So I'll blow it out. All right. Looks like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Let's go. There we go. Get some action now. Just need a little tap. It's been stuck on there for 215,000 miles, 10 years. Both sides at once. There we go. Okay. There it is. Some gunk on there. That may be why those runners were getting stuck. This oil gunk in there. Take off this gasket. Just looking to see, I haven't done one of these before. To see if there's a orientation. This looks like it's it's made out of 3 layers of material riveted together. Doesn't look like anything. Doesn't look like there's a front and back or a top and bottom. And it's just in case you ever wanted to know what it looks like under the lower intake manifold. There it is. And those wiring looms going there are the elusive knock sensors for bank 1 and bank 2. So there they are in there. If you ever need to replace a knock sensor, you don't have to take everything apart I've done here, but you got to take off the whole lower intake manifold and everything above it. So there they are. I'm going to take these off using a hand wrench just so I don't pound them. And because they might have some kind of piezoelectric element. Alright, I just pulled the last wiring loom out of there. Once I took those knock sensors out, I was able to take one more bracket off on the back of the block and pull the rest of the wiring harness away, the engine loom they call it, away from this engine. I think I have just about everything free now. There's a couple more brackets. I'm going to take off the coolant hoses that go across the front. This is it right here. It was under the lower intake manifold and it was fully inaccessible, and comes out to this hard line here and then comes over to that main pipe that comes around from the back. Loose. Slotted screwdriver. Loose now. I took the slingers off of the new motor, and these slingers are the brackets that you hook the chain to lift the motor up. This one looks easy. I already sized up the one back there, and it doesn't look like in the manual. It's not nice and sexy like this. It's got a big wide bracket on it. We'll see that in a minute. It goes back in this corner. It looks like I may need to move this. The only problem is this is an AC line, and it does not move over at the other end here, or it does not move much. So I'm not sure what I'm going to do there. We'll have to see when I can get that. This is sort of blind here, and the light is hard to get in there. Put my light down there. I said to get this power steering reservoir out of the way because I think it's going to be in the way of this. This slinger comes out sort of wide. Where? Who knows? It's about to dump. I should just dump it. I think this instruction said to empty it before you started. Yeah, dump it and then just lay it to the side. Before I start going. Now I got to put motor oil in this thing. I got to put gear oil in the transmission, and I got to put power steering fluid in the reservoir. I'm gonna tie this reservoir up with some baling wire. Okay, that was the easy one for warm up. This is what the other one looks like. And if you watch the video, when I took this out of the back of the truck when I first brought it into my garage, it has an A and an M, and I think that's automatic and manual, and I can only assume that's for lifting up a motor with a transmission on it and getting the right center of gravity, get the thing balanced. Obviously, with no flywheel on the back of this thing, it's a VQ40DE, and it doesn't know whether it's going to have a manual transmission or an automatic transmission on it. So I think I chose A when I lifted this up because it was, why? Because it was closer to the center and not as far back. And also, I think I thought a flex plate weighed less than a flywheel, and I have neither on here, so I wanted to go to the one that looked like it had less weight in the back, which is the one that's further towards the front. We'll see. Let me see if I can even get this thing on here. Like I said, this looks like I will need to adjust. I think I'm going to loosen that bracket and swing it out of the way. Just to keep it from having no support at all. It's screwed. There we go. I'm trying to balance. It's going to be coming right up against that AC line there. Something you never realize until you try a project like this. This motor is balanced without the transmission on there. It's balanced on those motor mounts. Just taking the accessories off the front made it drop back to a further reclined position there. So I'm going to put a strap on this thing just to hold it forward so I can get the slinger on there, because I can't get the bolt on there. It's too many things to hold at one time. Alright, just to hold that. Trying to figure out the best way to move this. These look like they're just regular tie wraps onto a square board that's mounted to the housing. So it's gonna get up under there. Angle. One more. Let's see if I can get it off. That's great, but how am I going to get this thing up out of there? I don't feel like that's exactly what you want, right? You want to be able to come up just at least just a little bit before you have to start coming forward. smashed up against the brake line, smashed up against the AC line, and it's obstructed by the main harness wiring for the whole dashboard. Alright. I guess that's how it's supposed to be. Nissan thinks that you should be able to do this, so I should be able to do this, right? The manual says remove front cross member both for the transmission and for pulling out this engine, and I didn't think I needed to do that for the transmission, so I didn't do it. I assumed they were talking about this one right here. I didn't do it because I had enough clearance even when I was tilting back to get the transmission, to get the top bolts on the bell housing. I see now that this lower oil pan, when I had to tilt the engine forward to get the rear slinger on there, and it's just barely clearing, I have the oil pan touching this cross member right now, okay? So that is not what we want. We don't want to put in the new engine and scrape it down the cross member or have it get obstructed on there. We don't want anything in our way. Once the engine's in, this oil pan will be an inch or so ahead of this cross member. It won't be at any risk of touching it or anything, obviously. So I'm going to go ahead and take this off. Hopefully it's not going to be as hard as the other one. That other one took me almost an hour to get off. I got a 17mm on there. Bolts in there. The reason I came around to this side because these nuts seem somewhat shallow for the kind of torque I thought I was going to be putting on there, so I wanted to put the tool against the bolt instead of the nut. Would have been easier to do when I had this thing up on the proper lift. Okay, this one feels like it's going to come out easier than the other one did, which I really appreciate right now. Wow, that was nice. Should memorialize this one. Came out like this. It's got the curvature going towards the back to clear the oil pan.